Hey everyone, is Franchise Horror Reviews, and today I'm bringing you my part 2 in my Ranking the Halloween Franchise series. If you missed last video, aka part 1, where went over my bottom 3 of the franchise, I will put a link in the description of this video and you can go click on it and go see what I put in the bottom. I really recommend doing that. But if not, welcome. In this video, I'm going over my middle of the franchise, and I want to make it perfectly clear. This was probably the hardest one to do. I know my bottom 3 by heart, I know my top 5 by heart, and I know my middle 5, but I just don't really know the order. So I had to pick on the cuff. I am more confident in my 10th and 9th placement than I am my 8th, 7th, and 6th placement, but these things are subject to change as the franchise has changed many, many times throughout the course of my life, and what I deem is the best film or the worst films or whatnot. Because I grew up with these films, I grew up being a massive fan of the Halloween franchise, and I mainly watch these movies on Halloween, which is my favorite holiday as long as I can remember. And a lot of my fondest memories growing up involves sitting down, collecting my candy after trick-or-treating, and watching these movies. I mainly watched the first 8 films. I was kind of phased out of trick-or-treating when the Rob Zombie movies came out. I was in high school. And then by the time the Blumhouse trilogy came out, I was a full-fledged adult. So I have a lifelong connection with this franchise, and I just want to put this out there that my ranking might not match yours, and that's going to be perfectly fine. If you disagree with anything, I'll be glad to hear your comments or what you have to say. I'm always open to talk, but just keep it respectful, okay? Now, where I'm not going to keep it respectful is my opinions about these movies, and I think I made it perfectly clear in my last video. I do kind of have a potty mouth on me, but this franchise is very polarizing to me in some regards, because you can really love some aspects of some of these movies, and you can really fucking hate some other aspects of these movies, so it's hard. It's really hard to hold back. So to set the stage, let's start off with my number 10 in the Halloween franchise ranking. Now, this film, to me, is like one of the two mixed bags in the franchise. I don't love this movie, and I don't hate it at the same time. I just think that it's just really 50-50. And the movie is Rob Zombie's Halloween. When this movie was first announced when I was in high school, I was really stoked for this, and my dad, I remember he went and got midnight release tickets, and we went to go see this that midnight, I think that Thursday, back when they actually did midnight releases, not like they do now where they do pre-release shows on Wednesdays and Thursdays. You can blame the shooter person from the Dark Knight movie tragedy that happened. But nonetheless, I remember going to see the movie that night, and I remember being disappointed that night. I've always been disappointed with this movie. It is so half and half, it's not even funny. Where I think that this movie kind of struggles is in terms of its writing, in terms of who's helming the writing, aka, I'm talking to you, Rob Zombie, and who's producing this film. So you have a recipe of Dimension Films. It's a remake to a classic horror movie from 1978. And you have Rob Zombie, who's at that point only directed, I think, 1 or 2 films. And his style cannot be far off from John Carpenter's. If there's any franchise Rob Zombie was ever going to remake, he should have just fucking remade the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, because that's exactly what he was trying to do with this fucking remake, when you think about it. This movie has a lot of fucking issues in the writing department. Rob Zombie, if you've ever seen House of a Thousand Corpses, or The Devil's Rejects, or 3 from Hell, and for some reason that's fucking called the Rob Zombie trilogy for some reason, you see all of this Tobe Hooper Texas Chainsaw Massacre residue all over this film, all over those films, and this film, because Rob Zombie's, I think, mostly influenced by that horror movie. I know he was featured in the 2003 documentary about the legacy of Halloween, and maybe that influenced him getting a job through Dimension and Malek Akkad for this movie. I don't know why they chose it. Maybe they thought that he was going to be the next fucking John Carpenter, because when John Carpenter made the original Halloween, he had only made maybe one or two films prior to that. And look at what he was able to accomplish. But the problem is, this was John Carpenter's baby. This is not Rob Zombie's baby. And I kind of want to make that perfectly clear, that even though this movie is a remake of the original, it feels like Rob Zombie's interpretation of the original, if that makes any sense. And where this movie just has Rob Zombie's white trash, fucking terrible family tropes all over this movie, and it starts in the first half where it's kind of like a whole 45-minute addition to the original movie when you think about it. It starts off with Michael as a child, and the first 45, 50 minutes of this movie, and I'm only talking about the theatrical version here. If you want to know what my thoughts about like the director's cut, I'll maybe do a video series next year talking about it, or maybe later on, not too far after I'm done wrapping up with these videos for the ranking of this series. But let's get back to what I was saying. The white trash tropes start in the beginning. We see Michael Myers growing up in a broken home. His mom's a stripper. His mom's boyfriend is an absolute piece of shit. He doesn't work. He collects welfare. He's wheelchair bound for some fucking reason, and he treats his mom like shit. He treats Michael like shit, and the guy is just a textbook problem with Rob Zombie's writing. I swear to God, he needs a fucking muffle when he's such a stylistic director, and I think that this is one of his strengths with this movie. He's so stylistic, and he brings something really cool and unique and a flair to the table, but his writing, these characters are fucking abhorrent, awful, and you just want to hate them. The only character you don't hate in this first half of the film is Michael Myers' mom, who's played by Sheri Moon Zombie, and I'll tip my hat off to her. This is her best performance I've ever seen her do in any fucking movie. So, good job. A for effort here. And then the little boy who plays Michael, he does have some annoying fucking moments, like the screaming in the bathroom shit, but he is a pretty good actor, and you really sympathize with him, and that's the unfortunate side effect. You don't want to see this little boy growing up in a broken home who should be in Child Protective Services starting to become a serial killer. You know, it plays on that idea of the Halloween 4 kind of tease, where Jamie Lloyd was going to become the child killer at the end. At least that's what we thought. But in this film, it's just full of the, like I said, Rob Zombie tropes, really bogging down Michael's situation and really making it more fucked up than it has to be. And then he goes and kills one of his bullies at school, which breaks the seal. Halloween night happens. And then he murders his older sister and the mom's boyfriend, which you actually are cheering for, but it's just so fucking morbid and disturbing at the same time that it just gets under your skin and you don't know whether you like it or not. And I guarantee you, for most people who have seen this film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's awesome to see these characters die, but it's not cool seeing little boy Michael being the one to do this. And then, of course, you have the bridge point of the film where he goes to Smith's Grove and meets Dr. Loomis, and you just see him slowly deteriorating in his mental state, and then he just finally snaps. And we see that he's no longer Michael Myers. Shoots to present day, and Michael's now growing up, and Loomis has now written a book about Michael Myers, about like true evil and sociopaths, and how he was a product of his environment, and that's essentially what Michael Myers is in this movie. Rob Zombie wanted to make Michael Myers rooted in realism and in the broken home aspect. So there's no real mysticism, there's no real heart of evil stuff until the next fucking movie, but we'll get into that in a bit. And then after the whole book angle with Dr. Loomis is kind of wrapped up, it's essentially from this point on just a remake of the original film. More or less just trying to replicate Dean Cundey's cinematography and camera work, but done by Rob Zombie. And one saving grace to this half of the film is Sheriff Brackett, played by Brad Dourif. Laurie Strode, played by Scout Taylor Compton. And then Laurie Strode's best friend, played by Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. I think that these three actors did a really great job in this film in the second half. And then we get to see the big fucking 7-foot tall Michael Myers, Tyler Mane, who's one of my favorite Michael Myers. You don't really see him in his true element until the film after this, but he does have some really solid moments, and he does really fill out this big hulking presence as Michael. And when he breaks out of Smith's Grove, there's a really cool scene where we get to see some the guy who played the father in Kenan and Kel, and I think he was also in Dawn of the Dead, the original one from the 1980s. I forget his name, but seeing him in this movie is always such a treat. And yeah, the gore and the brutality is really amplified compared to the original 1978 movie in the second half. But there's also some really vulgar shit and some really fucking stupid shit that deals with dialogue and writing yet again. Laurie, when you first meet her, is talking about fingering a goddamn bagel. She treats all of her friends like a complete bitch for no reason. And then the kills are amplified, but it's also done with this weird angle that he's killing to get to his sister because he wants to isolate her and, like, I guess, entrap her and kind of just observe her and watch over her. But Laurie doesn't know that Michael is her brother, and she resists, and then Michael just snaps for some reason. Like, one minute he wants to be the good brother, and then he's like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to kill my sister now. And he tries to kill her. We're the only ones that know in this story. Laurie doesn't know. I don't think Loomis knows at this point. But Michael is her brother, and then he's just like, oh, I want to be around you. Oh, no, I'm going to kill you now. And then, of course, it feels so forced. And Dr. Loomis is, like, reluctantly coming back to try to help, Laurie. And then the ending happens so abruptly and just cliffhangs. And that's that fucking movie. Yeah, it's such a mixed bag because the writing is fucking terrible. All these characters are fucking terrible. The second half of the movie has a weird angle that I don't think quite works with the whole sibling connection. It kind of works, kind of doesn't, and it kind of feels like a waste of time to even introduce it. The whole Loomis writing a book angle really isn't played up to be all that interesting. Laurie's kind of a bitch for no fucking reason. Like I said, the kills and the brutality and Tyler Mane, it looks fucking phenomenal. I will stand by that. But if you ask me, where this movie really suffers is in that first act. And it makes this movie not all that rewatchable because you have to deal with that whole shit with Michael's broken home and it's just so uncomfortable, and it's such a weird movie that I will definitely place it above movies like Halloween H2O and Halloween 5 and Halloween Resurrection because it has a lot more positives to it than those three movies to me. But like I said, Rob Zombie's writing is terrible. A lot of these characters are fucking really, really fucking shitty for no reason. Come off like white trash, and you want to hate them. And they feel like unnecessarily like white trash for some reason as well. It's like it comes off so unnecessary and so distasteful at the exact same time. And all said and done, I just don't want to see a kid become a serial killer. I really don't want to watch that. Alright, so at number 9, I think this one is going to be easily the most divisive film moving forward in the franchise, pretty much forever. So we might as well get it out the way. We're going to talk about Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends, Halloween Ends, Halloween Ends. This movie was marketed as a final fight between Laurie and Michael, as the concluding movie of this Blumhouse trilogy, which I was kind of iffy on and mixed on, if you ask me. Very hit or miss in a lot of regards with this trilogy of movies. And on one hand, my expectations were already low going to see this movie. This is the newest film, mind you. And I will say, on the first viewing, I was pleasantly surprised by some of the quality this film brought in terms of coherency and individual idea it was going for. But on the other hand, when I went to watch it the second time, I can appreciate the coherency in the individual idea, but for it being a Halloween movie, it's terrible in a lot of regards. This is another film that I think is probably more 50-50, maybe even 60-40 for me. There's a lot of shit that is infuriating off the fucking bat. This film just feels like a big fucking ploy to essentially just dick ride the shit out of John Carpenter properties and projects he did from the 1980s. Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, and 2 other writers helped fucking write this movie. There's 4 writers on this fucking movie. And you would think that having more cooks in the kitchen sometimes will help the product. But it's one of those movies that I think just kind of got fucking lumped together and they served it on the plate anyway. Here's the thing. I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to make this perfectly clear. Out of all 3 of the Blumhouse movies, this movie shows the most creativity that these writers brought to the fucking table in this trilogy, and I will stand fucking by that. If the shit with the new character Corey Cunningham and Michael Myers, and the concept with Michael that we got, dealing with the blackest eyes, and being able to transfer evil, yes, I am giving you some spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any more, click off. This shit would have been better if it was put back in 2018. Now, if you want to think retroactively back on the former movies, you could think back to Dr. Sartain from 2018, where Michael didn't want to kill him in the car, in the cab, and everybody bitched about that scene. But when you think about it, if Michael had already imprinted on Dr. Sartain and planned to make Sartain his original apprentice in killing, that would have made sense why he didn't kill Sartain, and that's why Sartain was able to grab his mask. Alright, well, that can make sense, but why wasn't that idea expounded on in that movie? And why wasn't this shit at all in Kills either? Makes me think that, honestly, this film has the power. It's kind of like Halloween 5, where Halloween 5 not only takes away the part of the legacy that 4 had for being the middle movie of a trilogy, but it also just severely cripples 6, and 6 is at a tremendous disadvantage, right? But this film being the final movie, instead of disadvantaging the next movie, it just takes away from both films before it. And it just makes me reflect that these ideas in this introduced last minute, just show that this whole franchise as a whole in the Blumhouse trilogy was directionless and fucking utterly pointless. But let's get into the individual shit that makes this movie fucking bizarre on its own. I will say that this is a different feeling Halloween movie. I know a lot of people fucking hate this movie, and I get it. I've seen this movie twice now, and I plan on watching it a third time. But I still maintain that this will be the most divisive Halloween movie moving forward. And this is the weirdest Halloween movie ever. You know, off the bat, you introduce this movie to a brand new character we had not met before in the last movie of a trilogy. I mean, it shows that you're trying to swing for the fences, Blumhouse, but what the fuck were you thinking? As a standalone idea to introduce this character, Corey Cunningham, and go over his backstory about the year after the Halloween that took place in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, where there's this thing that happens when he's babysitting this boy, and he happens to, accidentally kill him. And it going down this rabbit hole of a plot where Corey Cunningham and somehow Laurie Strode and Allison, Laurie's granddaughter, have spent the past 3 or 4 years being ostracized by Haddonfield, who blame them for the events of what happened on Halloween 2018. And when you think about it, everybody defending Laurie out there, I mean, she didn't call the cops. She did lure Michael. She did preempt him to come to her house, and she did try to trap him with outside of the law, and it really fucking backfired. So I can understand Laurie's resentment. Allison, I don't know about her, but Corey, he accidentally killed a kid and he's become vilified, and it goes down to this social commentary about, I want to say social commentary, but there is commentary about hero mentality and perpetrator mentality and how they can sometimes connect with each other, and that can work. You see more of a drama element than your average Halloween movie, and I think this movie arguably could be considered a drama over a fucking horror movie as a whole because of it. You see Corey and Laurie meet, and she tries to set him up with her granddaughter, and they hit it off and they get into this relationship. And if you are a fan of John Carpenter and you've well acquainted of what these Blumhouse movies have been doing, this movie takes elements from another John Carpenter classic, the Christine movie, the classic 1980s one. And essentially, you know, it's even a callback to the character by the last name of Cunningham, like Corey Cunningham. Like, come the fuck on. How obvious can you be about that? Just blending another fucking movie into the Halloween franchise that does not belong. And not to fucking mention, alright? So the first 40 minutes of this film is literally around Corey Cunningham and intertwining his monologue and his experience with Laurie's narration. She's writing a goddamn book for some reason, and she seems to be not the same scarred woman that we saw in 2018 for 10 minutes. She seems to be like moved on. She's bought a house in Haddonfield, and she's just happy-go-lucky. There's even a scene where she's talking to Allison, saying you gotta find a guy to show your tits to. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is Jamie Lee Curtis's final fucking film in this franchise, and you give her dialogue like that shit? But, like I said, so the Corey angle and Allison is actually surprisingly interesting for the most part, but it takes about 40 minutes to get to Michael Myers. Michael Myers is not in this fucking film for 40 minutes. Very reminiscent to shit like H2O, right? But the kicker is, he's been hiding in a goddamn sewer for 4 years. Now, part of that's explained early on in the film, because for some fucking reason, they decided in this plot line to demolish the Meyer house. Okay? Which is the reason why I guess he's been hiding in the sewer. But the way they bitch him out when Corey and Michael meet is just utterly unfucking forgivable. Unforgivable. And this whole concept with him identifying with Corey and trying to make him his sidekick, like make him look like fucking Robin, it's just ridiculous in its own right. And then Corey, you know, he's in and out of psychosis. He may or may not be, you know, dreaming this whole shit up. And you kind of think that maybe he's just hallucinating and like impostoring as Michael. And I thought they were going to go that angle. But nah, Michael just gets bitched out, put on the sideline in this fucking movie. And on top of that, there's a whole fucking scene where Corey wants Michael's mask and goes inside of his little fucking sewer dwelling, wrestles him, defeats him, and removes his mask and leaves Michael there looking like a complete bitch. And that's a big no-no in this franchise. This film did not learn from the fucking mistakes of Halloween Resurrection, nor Halloween H2O. And also, blending this fucking redundant concept that we've seen done in Friday the 13th Part 5. We've seen this kind of loosely done in Rob Zombie's film that I just touched on. Dealing with watching somebody become a killer in the movie. And then we have elements from Jamie Lloyd's character from Halloween 4 and 5. Dealing with this possible psychic connection with fucking Michael. Why has Michael chosen Corey of all fucking people? Because he has a little bit of evil in him? Maybe because he feels like, you know, there's this darkness inside of him. That's a cool idea if it was expounded on in the movies before, but this movie's just so last minute, it doesn't even try to explain that connection. It just throws it out there. There's even scenes where, you know, Corey's luring people into the lair of Michael, and Michael is killing, and he's like, fucking, his body's turning into the goddamn I Am Legend vampires, and he's just like twitching around like he's gaining energy and shit, and you're like, where the fuck is this coming from? And then they try to make it sound like, oh, he disappeared after the event of kills, where he had an entire bloodbath before, and it just makes no sense why he would hide in the sewers and be weakened from all that if he was so powerful after killing all those people in Kills, and they jump do a 4-year time jump, which is also stupid as hell if you ask me. To me, the ending of Kills implies that the next movie is going to be on the same night as well, and they're all going to take place on one Halloween night, which is also frustrating in its own right. But you know, it's not all bad with the time jump, and it does offer a more coherent, deeper story than you do see in these films, and I can appreciate that. You do finally see characterization of Allison as a result. You finally understand her character. Corey's not, like I said, I don't think Corey's a bad character. I just think it's a bad idea to put him in this fucking final film for this, concluding this trilogy. It takes a while to get Michael in. Michael's treated so badly, and then Corey becomes the killer. And honestly, there is a fucking really good kill at the radio station. Honestly, that's my favorite kill in the entire Halloween franchise, if you ask me. The kill on the radio station dealing with the tongue, that was fucking phenomenal. But a lot of the creative kills that this film could have added in there was actually off screen. There are some kills that look really gruesome. Like there's a really creative kill, and I thought they would never be able to allow to do that shit on screen, and I knew that they were going to be doing it. And then as I saw it happening, it was a pan out, and I was like, yep, they can't do that because they're going to get NC-17. So I think there's a lot of creative stuff in this movie leading up to the final act, albeit really fucking annoying, really frustrating, really boring at times, and it's just like it's just a character-driven narrative that takes the wheel of this film and just drives it forward, and you know that should make a great movie, but it really doesn't. And then you get to the final part of the movie where we spent pretty much all this movie getting to know this Corey character, and he fucking dies, and that's complete bullshit. He tries to kill himself, and it's just really weird, and how that's handled is just really bad. And then the final act is Laurie and Allison essentially defeating Michael, who's been shown in this fucking film to not really be human, and they kill him like he's fucking human. And I guess it's a good send-off for Laurie Strode's character. I think Jamie Lee Curtis did turn in her best performing job she's done in the whole franchise, and you know, for the way it wrapped up, I think it's a good send-off for the character, but this film as a whole is just not for her legacy. I just think this movie's just a fucking mixed bag. The whole Corey shit, making Michael look like a bitch, is unfucking forgivable. It's just so weird. I think this movie would have done better as a standalone movie. There are a couple movies in this franchise that I believe that to be the case. Resurrection's one, and this film's no fucking different. It will have its cult following, I feel. I will see a lot of people saying that this is one of the best Halloween films. I just disagree. This movie does a lot of baffling fucking shit. A lot of dumb shit, too. And it kind of forgets its own continuity from the movies before it with Kills in 2018, but I digress. Just a fucking mixed bag, and that's what it is. Now, my number 8 was kind of hard to choose, but I went ahead and chose this film just because I think this film is like the second most overrated Halloween film in the franchise. And I just think this movie's decent. Like, we're hitting the territory where I just think from here on out it's decent or better. And I'm going to talk about Halloween 2018. When this movie was announced, I was so happy and I was so elated to be able to see Michael Myers come back, especially after the absence since 2009 with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I wanted more Michael Myers. It had been a while, and I was ready. You know, it was almost 10 years in the making. I want to see what Danny McBride and David Gordon Green, who worked on Eastbound and Down, which I loved that TV show. When I heard they were working on this film, I was stoked to go see it. I got my premiere pass to go see it the day before, like pre-release shows in the theater, and I remember seeing it in the theater, and I was at first impressed, but the moment I left the theater, I was like, It's not that great. And ever since then, I've been like on the fence whether I think this movie's good or just decent. And I just think this movie's decent. You know, this is where we're going to start leaning to the positive skews in this rating moving forward. I think that Halloween 2018, at the heart of it, is just great fan service. But that's like really its own merit to it. I don't really think that the writers or the producers really knew the direction they wanted to go with this film. But I do think that they made this film in mind for fans and fan service, which is a great thing. But I also feel like they played it really safe with this film, and they didn't really try to make it their own or contribute to the overall story in any reasonable way. This film erases all the sequels before, including Halloween 2 from 1981, and it goes back to the story of Halloween 1978, and I was like, alright, well, let's see where they go. And as the movie goes on, and on, and on, and on, and on, I'm like, they're really just making the fucking original movie in H2O all over fucking again. And I was just really bored and let down by that. You know, you have 40 years, this 40-year spectacle, right? And you're going to bring back this franchise, you're going to erase every single thing before it. Every single movie before it, besides the original. And the best idea you can come up with is having these reporters coming to Haddonfield to try to do an expose on Michael Myers, and that sets up this fucking movie? What? So where's this gonna go? Oh, you kill the reporters off. Michael's got his mask in broad fucking daylight. He's heading back to Haddonfield. Guess what? Laurie, she's an estranged woman. She has a daughter who was taken away from her because Laurie was a basket case for some reason, which makes no fucking sense, because why would she be, for 40 years, why would she end up the way she was turned out in this movie, as like a gun-toting granny who's PTSD stricken, lives out in the woods, lives out far away from everyone, if Michael wasn't her brother? Like, it really comes across, and I think it's even stated in the film, that she did this, and she lives out there on purpose, just in case Michael Myers ever comes back. Why the fuck would you try to add this into the movie, where she's all like depressed for like the first 10 minutes, and then maybe you see her cry when she's trying to go out and watch the fucking transfer bus, and then you just completely drop that for the rest of the fucking trilogy? It seems like it was a haphazard idea to kind of get some cheap emotional sympathy out of the viewers for Laurie, and they didn't really know what to do with her character, bringing her back. Did they want to make her like, oh, she's like moved on, she lives a good life, or did you want to make her broken and make her feel like she has to prepare for Michael Myers so you can have points of plot convenience when Michael Myers inevitably shows up at her fucking house? That's how this movie comes across. Like, I get it. A lot of the stuff is planted so it can be used later on. There's no Chekhov's guns in this movie, and that's kind of one of its strengths. But as the movie trots along, you start to notice little fan service things here and there. And then the fan service evolves from like Easter eggs to actual kills from previous movies, actual plot points from previous movies, and it just comes across like a Halloween best stuff hits movie. There's really no identity to this movie. These new characters, Laurie's daughter, Laurie's granddaughter, Laurie's son-in-law, they're all cardboard characters. There's no characterizations to any of these new characters, minus that they are estranged from Laurie. Every single new character in this movie is hinged around Laurie. They don't act on their own, and when they do, it's very surface level, and you know shit about them. All these side characters who die, they're like Allison, the granddaughter, the ragtag group of friends she hangs around, have some of the worst fucking dialogue in the entire Halloween franchise of all time. And I will stand fucking by that. And as the movie progresses, James Jude Courtney, who plays Michael Myers in this, gives honestly a great breakout performance, and some of the stuff they do with Michael in this movie is really magical. But I dare say that Michael's not enough to carry this movie, everyone. He's just not. Like, yeah, he has some great moments, but also, you gotta remember, Michael's in his fucking 60s, and he's hiding in a kid's closet to kill a teenager. Like, some of this shit just really doesn't match up to Michael's age, and you really have to suspend your disbelief with this movie. And it's not even like it's so bad it's good. It's like it's trying to take itself serious and, do right by the fans, but it's also interjecting some really stupid shit in there just to make it feel like the original, to, capitalize on nostalgia. And, while I have more positives with negatives to it, I like the way it was shot, I like the cinematography, I like the color hues, the music. The music in this movie is great. It really captures a great rendition of the Halloween theme. Some really good chase sequences. The final act is really fucking cool and very climactic, and it makes me really want to check out the next movie after it. There's a lot of high points in this movie, but majority of the movie just kind of falls flat, honestly. When I think about this movie, it's so decent and it gets so much right that it's like decently good. But that's all I can say. It has its clear negatives. I've already brought them up. Essentially, the main fucking negative about this movie is in hindsight. They didn't fucking put the ideas from Ends, the actual fucking ideas they had to bring to this franchise. They didn't have enough hindsight to start this shit, to introduce Corey Cunningham in this fucking movie. Dr. Sartain, which could have been tied to Ends, was killed off and kind of hampered the story moving forward in Ends. In Kills, and we saw that happen. Kills had no fucking story whatsoever, minus a flashback of Michael and the whole Evil Dies Tonight hospital shit. Like I said, I just don't think that this movie knew what it was trying to do and set up anything coherent. It just threw out a basic fan service, best of hits type of movie to see what stuck. And then the afterthought was going to be, all right, now, how do we make a franchise and a trilogy out of this movie? It was too bare bones. It was too played safe. Doesn't get too much wrong. A lot of its issues stem from hindsight, like I said, and just taken from other movies. Kind of suffers from originality here and there. Some really stupid shit. Some really bad dialogue with some characters. The whole Laurie being PTSD stricken for 10, 15 minutes of the movie just gets wasted off, and very contrived with their whole house. And like I said, it's not a Chekhov's gun, but it's just very forced and not that great. Easily the second most overrated Halloween film in the entire franchise. Now at number 7, I think this is going to get me in hot water for placing this movie above Halloween 2018 for a lot of you. But I think this is the true middle of the franchise. And you've been looking at the blanket I have back here, and we're essentially going to talk about Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Yes. I will say this now, up front. For you to enjoy this movie, you're going to have to suspend your disbelief completely. You're going to have to give yourself to the madness of this film. You're going to have to understand that this movie had tremendous production issues, script issues for many years. It had to deal with the remnants in the bullshit from Halloween 5. Donald Pleasence died before they can do a lot of reshoots with this film. You got to know the director really only did this movie so he can get a film deal with Miramax to do 3 other films, and he didn't really care about the Halloween franchise. And as long as you know those things, and as long as you know that this film, going into it, you're going to get a great-looking Michael Myers, you're going to get some fucking awesome kills, you're going to see the first on-screen debut of Paul Rudd, you're going to see Donald Pleasence's final performance, and you're going to see a really different feeling movie, not just because it's chopped together in a fucking incoherent goddamn mess, but it's stylish, and its style kind of outweighs its, substance. Which I think is a different movie altogether. I'm only talking about the theatrical cut here, but there's actually a lot to praise about this movie. I kind of already touched about them. This movie has, I think, the best fall atmosphere out of all the Halloween films combined. It feels cold. It looks like Midwest, like autumn in the Midwest. It has this ambiance to it where Halloween has been banned. And you can, it feels different in its setup. Halloween's really been banned from the town. Everybody still decorates their house, and maybe kids go trick-or-treating, but you can't really celebrate it anymore. Haddonfield's been bruised by Michael ever since the events of Halloween 5. And inside the Michael Myers home now lives Laurie's adopted family's, I think is her adoptive father's brother. His family lived there, and you get to meet these characters, Kara Strode and Danny Strode, who are actually pretty decent characters. And it brings in Tommy Doyle to be one of the main characters, played by Paul Rudd. And just for that alone, it feels different enough that you can kind of treat this movie kind of like a standalone movie as well in the franchise. It kind of holds up on its own, has a great atmosphere going for it, a great Michael Myers. But holy fucking shit, does this movie get a lot wrong too. Like I said, if you suspend your disbelief, you got to remember that this movie's trying to answer the fuck-ups that Halloween 5 had. So, of course, we're going down into the Cult of Thorn tattoo and the Man in Black fucking bullshit. And yes, now either cut you go, this or the producer's cut, it's fucking terrible, okay? So, this movie begins where you see Dr. Loomis and his, played by Donald Pleasence in his final role. We meet Dr. Wynn, who comes into the film finally after 6 movies. We haven't seen him since the first film, and he's talking about having Dr. Loomis come back, and he says he's retired. But then there's something on the radio from early in the opening segment where we see this teenage girl giving birth to a baby. It turns out it's Jamie Lloyd. And all these years, from the end of 5, Jamie Lloyd has been held in this underground bunker and has given birth. We don't know who the father is in the theatrical version, but if you watch the producer's cut, you're going to find out it's good old Uncle Mike. What the fuck? But there is some hints of that in this movie, just not explicitly said. So Jamie and her baby try to escape. Michael, of course, kills the nurse that helps them escape and brutally kills a guy by twisting his fucking neck. It pops out of his fucking neck socket. It looks brutal as shit. And Jamie tries to, leave in a stormy night to escape Michael Myers. Tommy Doyle is played by Paul Rudd, and his acting is very hit or miss in this movie, and his dialogue isn't the greatest either. But he's now like this stark lunatic who's become obsessive about Michael Myers and looking into Michael Myers, and he apparently has discovered through this fucking X-Files type of goddamn government base that he's made his bedroom, that Michael's associated with this cult and this thorn symbol constellation crap out in the fucking outer space. So that's the answer they gave for Michael's tattoo, and they feel like that it has something to do with the druidic ritual, and the Man in Black is implied to be in part of this fucking druidic ritual. And as the plot unfolds, Jamie comes, to Haddonfield, calls the radio station. Paul Rudd hears it, Dr. Loomis hears it, but then Jamie Lloyd's character gets killed off in one of the brutalest kills in this entire franchise and one of my favorite kills, but it's also fucking disrespectful to her character. She gets killed by a hay baler and has her guts spilled out like goddamn spaghetti. It's gnarly and fucking brutal, but that's what they decided to do with her character. We spent Halloween 4 caring about her and Halloween 5 caring about her, and she dies within the first 25 minutes of fucking Curse of Michael Myers. Rest in peace. Fucking one of the best characters in this franchise, I guess. So, the movie moving forward, she left the baby in the fucking train station, and Paul Rudd's character goes to fucking find the baby, and he names it Steven. Mind you, this baby is Michael and fucking Jamie's bastard child. So, they have people coming after this baby. The cult is after this baby, the Man in Black. Danny Strode, Kara Strode's son, is thinking he sees visions and shit. And then the movie just becomes a choppy fucking mess after this point because they tried to reshoot a bunch of shit, but Donald Pleasence died. So this movie just becomes a hoppy fucking mess where, you know, Michael goes and kills the mom of Kara Strode, her father, who's a big piece of shit, and he has a really cool fucking death with a head explosion. And this movie just starts hopping around. See some really cool visuals at a Halloween festival party. You get this iconic line with the blood hanging from the tree. It's like raining blood or something. That's a really cool fucking line and part of the movie. I know a lot of people cringe when they see that. There's like a big reveal from the old lady neighbor talking about the legend of Michael Myers and how she was there that night, and the fucking shocking plot twist that all the people in the neighborhood were in on this cult the whole time. And big spoiler, in case you haven't seen it, but Dr. Wynn, who is, you know, a one-off character from the first movie, is now the big bad of this entire fucking trilogy. He's revealed to be the Man in Black. He's revealed to be the caretaker of Michael Myers. And he's now ready to take Kara Strode, the baby Steven, and Danny Strode to this lair, presumably nearby Smith's Grove or underneath Smith's Grove. So they go there, and Michael's revealed to be this pawn in this whole fucking cult game where he's basically instrumentalized to draw blood, to sacrifice to the evil spirit of Samhain that lives within or possesses the power through the druidic symbol of the Cult of Thorn. It's a lot to fucking take in, and it's complete bullshit. And it just, I really don't like the direction they took here. But what makes this movie funny, and also kind of a big fuck you to Gerard, who introduced this shit at the same time. It's like in the theatrical version, you spend all this time trying to figure out what the fuck is this cult, what the fuck is going on, because the movie's so goddamn choppy, and some of the transitions look fucking hilarious because of it, and some of them look really fucking terrible because of it. But when you get to the end of this film, and Michael just decimates the entire cult within one fell swoop inside of this fucking examining room, and treats them like, oh, fucking cult shit's done, this is as far as we're gonna go with this shit in this movie. I laugh now every time I see that, just because of just how fucking stupid it was. The moment they fucking reveal it in the movie, that's when they fucking get killed almost immediately. And then the finale of this movie is just really fucking baffling, and I can kind of understand why, because they wanted to reshoot it because they didn't like it in test screenings with their original ending, and good fucking Christ, I'm not talking about that today, but fuck that ending. This ending is really fucking crazy and weird and shot randomly, and you know, you kind of get a good send-off to Donald Pleasence's character, but it's also really bizarre and fucking baffling in its own right. And yeah, I really have nothing else to say about this movie. It's just, on one hand, this movie gets a lot right with Michael. The look of Michael looks fucking great. The mask is probably one of my favorite masks in the whole franchise. You know, he's going around fucking killing people brutally. You know, some of my really, really iconic franchise moments with Michael in here. Like I said, Kara Strode is a really good character. I like Danny Strode. I like Dr. Loomis in this movie for the little bit that we get. But how choppy this movie gets really bogs down this movie for a lot of these good characters and some good ideas it does have. Because it's so fucking choppy and lacks coherency. Like, Dr. Loomis, you know, it doesn't have burn marks anymore because he had plastic surgery, but in the theatrical cut, they cut out that entire scene where he reveals that to Dr. Wynn for some fucking reason. And there's also a bunch of shit where, you know, Dr. Loomis is randomly at the hospital when Tommy goes there with Steven. Makes no fucking sense why they're both at the hospital at the same time. Like, he's just randomly there. And, you know, some transitions look really fucking bad because of it. A lot of coherency dealing with the cult in the final act of the movie is completely cut out. So it just comes off as like a big fucking huge waste of time. And some people might complain about the music in this film. I kind of like it. When I hear that final end credit song, something about that end credit song just slaps to me. And it comes off like a fucking horror classic. I love that song. Strange Michaels touched on this if you're out there watching. And I totally agree that something about that song really just clicks. And yeah, I really have given myself to the madness of this movie. I know it has a really incoherent and bad plot. The script isn't the greatest. I think mainly the transitions of this is the issue. Some spotty acting from Paul Rudd here and there. The Dr. Wynn twist is complete bullshit. But other than that, I think this movie is actually so bad it's kind of good. I don't want to say this is a bad movie, but it definitely does feel like it's a so bad it's good. And that's why I put it above the other movies I've mentioned on this. It's just I like this a lot more. And I started out loving this movie as a kid, then I grew to hate it. Now I've kind of just reacquainted myself with the madness, and I've kind of given myself to it. So, there you go. And, of course, at number 6, we have the final movie we're going to be discussing, and it's going to be, prepare yourselves, everyone, Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie. Yes, Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie, I think is an underrated film. I think it's misunderstood. You know, I can't excuse a lot of this fucking dumb shit that Rob Zombie tried to bullshit his way into this film with. Like the whole white horse quote in the beginning is completely fabricated and made up. And he tried to make this movie more of like his music videos than actually making a Halloween movie. I totally get that, and I totally get the gripes about it. And I really don't have much to say about this movie other than to point out its clear flaws. The fucking writing in this movie is the same, almost the same issue as his original remake. The writing of these characters, although I do like how Laurie is sympathetic and is driven to almost insanity and depression, and it comes off authentic. And I think Michael's written very, very well for the most part, for at least most of the movie, where he's just a brutal and savage fucking Michael Myers, and some of the kills in this movie is fucking unreal. Like, when he cuts the head off the guy is insane. Like, you can't unsee that shit. Fucking amazing performance by Tyler Mane. I really love Scout Taylor Compton. Brad Dourif and Danielle Harris bring it again with their acting. And the acting, I think, is solid. And the ambiance is solid. I think he actually captures a better fall atmosphere than his previous film, and it comes off colder. It's one of those colder atmospheric movies. And the gore's turned up. I see more of Rob Zombie's creative flair than trying to emulate Carpenter in this, and I can really appreciate it for that. But essentially, other than that, this plot is a big clusterfuck of random shit. The White Horse angle, going back in flashbacks, is fucking insane and completely stupid, and I'm not going to waste anybody's time. The fucking vision and sharing vision shit with Laurie is weird, and that could work without the White Horse, but the fucking that shit is just fucking stupid. And how they can like share dreams and shit, fuck that shit. Also, on the second ring of fuckery that this movie does, what happens to Dr. Loomis in this movie is fucking stupid as shit. He becomes a fame-chasing author. He loses himself he's no longer the same Loomis from the first movie, and he seems like he doesn't give a shit about Laurie or Michael. He just wants to make money and profit off their story. And Loomis is easily the most unlikable piece of shit in any Halloween movie ever, next to the dad from the Rob Zombie remake of like the mom's boyfriend from Rob Zombie's Halloween remake. I mean, Dr. Loomis fucking sucks. The White Horse shit sucks. And then some of the dialogue in this movie is absolutely vulgar. Like, there's necrophilia jokes. There's a joke about fucking jamming a penis inside of a dead fucking body, and oh god, more white trash characters, more just fucking deplorable characters. Like the entire Munster gang, and cool fact about this movie, who Rob Zombie got to play Herman Munster, the father, and the wife character from the Munsters, are all in one scene together at the bar in this movie. Go fucking figure, right? Or maybe that might have been the first movie. But other than that, this movie is actually pretty good. Like I said, those issues with Loomis, the White Horse fucking bullcrap, the fucking the vulgar dialogue and the white trash characters, I can live without. But other than that, this movie is actually an underrated slasher classic to me. The brutality really sticks out. It has a lot of issues. It is flawed. I can get why people hate the White Horse angle to it and the psychic connection. I think it's actually more exacerbated in the unrated director's cut. And honestly, if you ask me, I know how hard it is to get a physical copy of the theatrical version of Halloween 2. I think majority of people come from a place of hate from watching the unrated director's cut, which I'm not talking about in too much detail here, but I totally understand. If you watch that movie, what that movie adds is complete fucking bullshit. And I'm talking about what it adds to Michael Myers. Just in that one scene, completely ruins him as a character. If you ask me. But other than that, I think it was a cool way to end this little Rob Zombie duel. I guess it was intended to be a trilogy, and there was supposed to be a Halloween 3D, but it never happened. But honestly, I really like the angle they took with Laurie here. It was very believable, especially in the theatrical cut. I like this angle with her. I like that she's broken. I like that she's starting to kind of lose herself as well. And it kind of shows, like, the first movie's about Michael. You got a Michael movie about his trauma, and the second movie is about Laurie's trauma. And how they kind of intersect. And that relationship kind of thing that they form throughout the movie because of the psychic connection has its highs and lows. And it's really fucking dumb shit as well. But I think it does have an effective message. I think it is scary. I think it is brutal. I think it's underrated. I think in terms of the other movies I've mentioned in this video, I would take this over those any day, if you ask me. But that's just me, alright? Yeah. So, that's it for my middle of the franchise, I guess. I'm sorry, I went way over on this video, but I had a lot to get off my chest. Let me know what is your middle five. I want to know. Just to kind of show you again, here is my middle five right here. I'm dying to know yours. So yeah, let me know down in the comment section. If you haven't watched part one, go watch part one right now. And I'll see you next time.